This hour of the Howie Carr Show is brought to you in part by Piantadosi Baking Company, celebrating 100 years of baking excellence since 1916. You know, yesterday I think Hillary Clinton was in North Carolina, and she was attacking the voter ID law that was passed by the North Carolina General Assembly, the legislature, to prevent voter fraud. And she said, oh, it's the worst thing in the world to prevent people from voting. Oh, it's so terrible what these Republican legislatures are doing in Texas and Wisconsin and North Carolina. Yeah, okay. They really care a lot about voter intimidation. Remember the Black Panthers in Philadelphia in 2008? The new Black Panther Party was outside the polling places, all dressed in black. They were carrying saps, billy clubs, just total intimidation of voters, especially white voters in Philadelphia. And they were going to be indicted and charged with voter intimidation and assault, et cetera, all kinds of federal crimes. And as soon as Obama and Eric Holder got in there, they dropped all the charges. So it's apparently it's okay for the new Black Panther Party to intimidate white voters, but it's a terrible, terrible racist crime for a warden at a precinct in any state in the union to ask somebody for an identification before handing him a ballot.
Howie 781 brings up another good one, the raid on Gibson guitars.
Yeah. Tell people about that one, what that was all about.
It was just a political opponent of the Obama administration suddenly wakes up and his office is being raided for some obscure trade violation, some obscure, like the wood they were importing was improper. Yeah. And now Peter Thiel's company is being sued.
Peter Thiel is, of course, the guy who spoke at a gay guy. A gay immigrant. I mean, you'd think he'd be pretty high on the totem pole of political correctness, but no, he happens to be a billionaire. He's a Silicon Valley investor. He spoke at the Republican convention. He's the guy who backed financially the lawsuit by Hulk Hogan that put Gawker out of business because Gawker had outed him as gay and he didn't. Oh, I guess, though, Peter Thiel is gay and he's an immigrant, but I guess that doesn't matter because he's an evangelical Christian. I think that's the worst sin of all as far as these people are concerned. So what are some of the things that Clinton, Freudian slip, Obama should regret? He says he has no regrets, but of course we have some regrets. How about all the people he's pardoned and commuted? All these drug kingpins and these recidivists in federal prison. He just keeps letting out another couple of hundred every couple of weeks. And this is another example of hypocrisy. You know, he wants to have, quote unquote, common sense gun law reform. Common sense. That's a word Hillary used again in the debate on Monday night. But at the same time, he wants to crack down on the rights of the average American citizens, i.e. deplorables and bitter clingers, to exercise their Second Amendment rights. He, at the same time, is refusing to enforce any of the gun laws that are on the books when they're being used against people in his voting demographic. They're not enforcing the feds have orders, marching orders, not to enforce gun laws against drug dealers, against recidivists in the inner city. So, you know, what's going on here? So if you're a drug kingpin and you get caught with a sawed-off shotgun, you're gonna be pardoned by Obama. But he wants to close the non-existent gun show loophole. He wants to make it harder for American citizens who don't deal drugs to have firearms. He wants to make ammunition unaffordable by raising the tax on it, just like he succeeded in driving the coal industry out of business. Link, you're next with Howie Carr on the General Communications listener line. Go ahead, Link. You there, Link? No Link. Skip, you're next with... Oh, the phone system's down? Okay, the phone system's down. All right, we'll just keep talking about this. How about the fact that when he turned NASA into a Muslim outreach agency? How about when he withdrew? You know, we won the Iraq War. You understand that? We won the Iraq War. The surge routed al-Qaeda out of Anbar province, and we had won the war. But we needed to keep a certain level of American military presence in Iraq so that we could basically keep the peace and prevent the Sunni terrorists from returning. But Obama pulled out all the troops precipitously, and that's what led to ISIS. Nature abhors a vacuum, and we allowed a vacuum to develop, and ISIS came in. And somebody said he should regret freeing Baghdadi, who's the head of ISIS. But he did, that's something for George Bush to regret. He's the one. Al-Baghdadi was released during Bush's campaign. How about the shovel-ready jobs, the stimulus program? We're going to have shovel-ready jobs. It was just basically a bailout to public employees who belonged to unions that kicked back money to the Democrat Party. That's all that was. There were no shovel-ready jobs. He later even admitted that. He said that there were. He said that the jobs weren't as shovel-ready as we thought. And then he began laughing. Remember that? He began laughing.
How about withdrawing the missile defense system from Poland and making Russia very, very happy? And now he turns around and says Trump is too close with Putin.
Yeah. Trump is too close with Putin. He was, he was recorded on a hot mic as saying he was going to take care of him once the 2012 election was over. Now, in the 2012 election, he told Mitt Romney, when Mitt Romney said Russia was our primary enemy in the world, he said, Governor Romney, the 80s called and they want their foreign policy back. Well, guess what? Now Russia is our greatest enemy because he's trying to tie Donald Trump to Vladimir Putin. They're just, this administration has been a disaster in so many ways, and not for the least of the gutting of the Bill of Rights, many of the amendments of the Bill of Rights. It's just it's quite sad. How about the fact that he's doubled the national debt? We've had, despite what the rep from Ohio thinks, we've only had about 42, 43 presidents up till now. He accumulated more debt in 8 years than all of the previous presidents combined. And then he runs up the deficit so high to unknown numbers, and then he cuts it down to a somewhat less astronomical level. And he goes out and announces, I have reduced the deficit more than any president in American history.
And he didn't really cut the deficit down. He just increased tax collection to record levels.
Right. Well, and the thing is, the reason he could reduce it by a record amount was because he had raised it to a record amount. By a record amount. 1-844-500-4242. Steve, you're next with Howie Carr on the General Communications listener line. Go ahead, Steve.
Hi, Howie, listener from Maine. The American flag, he wouldn't wear the American flag, and he referred to the Marine Corps.
Yeah, a corpsman. Yes, a corpsman.
Corpsman.
Yeah. He's got. How about his stupidity? How does he regret his stupidity by referring to Navy corpsmen, saying there are 57 states, talking about the Intercontinental Railroad when he meant to say the Transcontinental Railroad? saying that they speak Austrian in Austria, saying they speak Arabic in Afghanistan. I mean, the guy knows absolutely nothing about history, geography, current events. He's ignorant because he never had to learn anything. He just had to check the box, and he'd be given the editorship or the chairmanship of the Harvard Law Review. He'd be given a Nobel Peace Prize. Everything was handed to him, Steve.
How about elevating climate change to a national security priority?
Yeah, that's almost as bad as turning NASA into a Muslim outreach agency. And you talk about absurd things, he said. My election will serve as the moment when the sea levels began receding. How's that one working out, Steve? You think the sea levels are really receding? I don't think there was a problem with them rising to begin with, but I don't think his election had anything to do with them receding. Thanks for the call, Steve. John, you're next with Howie Carr on the General Communications listener line. Go ahead, John.
Hi, Howie. This is John from Maine calling. Something that Obama ought to regret, although I do not regret it, is his effort to ban guns following the Sandy Hook shooting. As a result of his efforts in that regard, the American people they're basically the most heavily armed they've ever been in American history. The AR-15 rifle has become the number one most popular rifle of all types of rifles in the United States of America, and their Second Amendment is, I think, probably is held in as high a regard as it's ever been in the American public's mind. So,
well, John, that's because people take him at his word. I mean, they understand that he wants to. It's going to be impossible, but he wants to take guns away from the American people. So that's why people are arming themselves. If Hillary Clinton's elected, if Hillary Clinton is elected, there will be a run on firearms and ammunition like nothing you've ever seen before, including these last 8 years, because people will just be arming themselves. And again, by the way, I mean, you talk about insanity. They always say, we can't deport 11 million people. How would you ever go about deporting 11 million people? Yet Obama and Clinton think there's going to be no problem whatsoever to round up 300 million firearms. It's not. It's just they on top of their authoritarian instincts. They're out of their minds. They don't understand human nature. Thanks for the call, John. 1-844-500-4242. That's the toll-free number of the Howie Carr Show. We'll be right back. I'm Howie Carr.
Howie Carr. You can trust him. He's not like the others.